Welcome to Ventre Synthetic Lubricants. Happy New Year. I hope everybody had a wonderful New Year's Eve, and hopefully you're well on your way to your New Year's resolutions. This year for Ventre Synthetic Lubricants, I've got some big stuff planned. We're gonna go to some races, some car shows, some events, and we're gonna create some awesome content for you guys. And hopefully that's gonna get me some views. But today, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna check out I'm gonna show you guys my compressor setup, show you how I have it plumbed and describe to you how it works and everything. And then I'm gonna change the oil and the filter on it. So here is my compressor setup. I've got this 60-gallon DeVilbiss compressor. I bought it a couple years ago. The guy said it was about 10 years old at that time. I don't know if they still make them or whatever, but it runs great. I needed this one. Took a crap on me in the middle of a paint job. It wouldn't build air pressure anymore, and so these ones are great. It ran for a long time and ran well and whatever, but they're super loud because it's an oilless compressor there, and it doesn't build as much pressure. It doesn't hold as much air. So I wanted to go with something bigger, but I didn't have a ton of money, so I got this used, and it turned out great. And the good thing about these is you can get these. You can get replacement pumps online fairly reasonable. So as long as you got a good solid tank, it's not a bad deal. Now this one, I wanted to dry the air, but I didn't have the money for an air dryer. So the way that this works is the pump builds the air pressure and it sends it down to here. Then the air has a chance to expand and the water will, by sake of gravity, fall out in this tank, and then it comes back up this line and fills the big tank. So the majority of the water is collected in that tank and I can drain it off. The other plus is that now I have 93 gallons of air as opposed to the 60 that I had before, and this thing will keep up with just about everything I've done so far. So then after it goes out of there, it comes out of the tank and it goes through this 3 filter setup. This was a cheap little job that I got on Amazon. It had some poor reviews, but I think what was happening is that people are running them on, say, a compressor like this, where they're producing a lot of water, and then you're pumping this thing full of water, and then that doesn't do any good. This thing has worked excellent for me because most of my water is coming out in here instead of making it into the tank and then getting pumped into the filters. So this setup works excellent for me. Never had any water, and it was a lot cheaper than buying a air cooler, or an air dryer rather. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drain the tanks, and then to get the water and the air out, and then I'm going to run them to heat up the oil. Like I say in all my oil change videos, when you circulate and heat up that oil, it holds the contaminants. But I'm going to do that off camera because it's super loud. Okay, this top one is where we fill it. We'll take that off so it drains easier. Watch these lines. They are hot. This one's not so much. Well, this one's the hot one. That one not so much, but. Okay, and then this bottom one here is our drain plug. I really need to set up a hose so I don't have to hold the pan here. I change the oil in my compressor about once a year. I'm not sure what the recommended is, but I also don't use it every day. Like you're supposed to drain your compressor every single day. I don't do that. I drain it about once a week because I don't use it every single day. It's probably not good for it. That water sits in the bottom. It can rust it out and things like that. So definitely something to look into, but it takes quite a while to drain and refill 93 gallons of air. So the one thing that I forgot to mention is with this setup, the nice thing is that you can find compressors that, like the 30-gallon ones, that are where the compressor is bad, like mine, but the tank is still good. You can find those on Craigslist all the time. So this is a really easy and cheap setup. This I don't remember what this copper lines cost me, but it wasn't much. So pretty easy setup, and then a couple compression fittings to go into the pumps, or go into the pump and go into the tanks. So good. It's a good setup on the cheap. Okay, once it's done draining, we'll put the drain plug back in. And then we're going to fill it in this one. I use AMSOIL, of course, compressor oil. Doesn't take very much. Some of them have a cool sight glass here, which is handy, but I don't have one. So we'll just fill it up to the bottom of that fill hole. It doesn't take very much. Yep, I already overfilled it. And then I just give it a minute to drain down. Make sure it's it levels out and it's at the bottom of that fill port. And then we'll just put the fill plug back in. Now the air filter just has it's got a couple bolts up here that you take out, and the cover comes off, and then the air filter comes right out. So there's the used air filter. Try and get it in the light. And there's the new one. I catch, because I'm always grinding in here. I painted while this air filter was in there. It's important to replace these because then your pump's got to work so much harder to suck the air in. So it's important to replace them. They're cheap and it's just too easy to do. So here's the setup here. The air filter goes here. It's hard for me to get a good picture of it. And then this retainer goes here. And then the two bolts go back in there. And then we'll tighten those down. So that's it. That's my compressor setup and how I service it. One thing I will say, if you guys want to build your own kind of rigged up setup like this, one thing, the biggest thing that you want to keep in mind is that when the air is compressed, it gets superheated, and so the hotter the air is, the more moisture it carries with it. So in your setup here, you want to make sure that you cool the air as much as possible. So for example, as it comes through this copper line and then it goes into this other tank, it's got a chance to cool off before it pumps back into here. Well, when it cools off, then the water forms into condensation and drops off into the tank. So that's something I've seen, you can do a Google search, but I've seen setups where guys will run a coil into like a 55-gallon barrel of ice water or something like that. Guys will run them through old refrigerators, things like that. So that's the key, is you want to cool the air before you put it back into the big tank, and then that water will fall out. So that's it, guys. Let me know what you think about the video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Check out my website and my Facebook page. They'll be listed and linked. I'll list some of the parts and stuff that I've got for setup. I'll put Amazon links in the description, and we'll see you next time.